Hello, teachers.
Hi.
Do you all want to discuss first before we add, or just jump in there? Or like do our introductions?
Either way's fine with me.
My name is Sherry Matthews. I am a special education teacher at Lee Grand Elementary in Hart County. I've been a teacher since 2015. I was in AmeriCorps in CCC, stationed in the Southeast region, and I did AmeriCorps Vista in Cody, Wyoming, and have had a lot of experience with other groups, and that kind of inspired me to teach.
My name is Desha Barnhorst. And actually my first year of instructional coaching. I was an elementary school teacher for 10 years, 2nd grade and 5th grade, moving into district role, instructionally coaching elementary school teachers. So I get to see at all across the grade levels and kind of get in there and really get to see a broad look at all of our students in our building. So it's been an interesting year for sure.
I'm Michelle Lisby. This is my 4th year teaching. I teach 3rd grade at Southside Elementary in Shelby County, and I'm looking forward to another great year next year.
Hi, I'm Renita Wilburn. I'm from Fayette County. I teach at Frederick Douglass High School. I'm a special education teacher, and I've been teaching since 2012. I've also done work outside of the classroom, so I've been an achievement and compliance coach as well, and I just enjoy everything that I do.
My name is Keisha Ansel. I teach in Jefferson County Public Schools. I'm a high school teacher. I teach U.S. history and African history. I'll be going into my 4th year of teaching in this upcoming school year.
My name is Alfonso de Torres. I'm a Spanish teacher in Bloom Elementary in Jefferson County. I used to be the state supervisor for world languages at the state, and now I'm just a teacher, and I am a proud Go Teach Kentucky ambassador.
Hey y'all, can everybody hear me? Okay, perfect. My mic's been a little wonky today. My name is Lindsay Nottingham, and I just finished my 6th year of teaching. I'm an ESL teacher, grades 5th through 8th with Clark County. I've previously worked in Boone County, Erlanger, Ellesmere, Gallatin, and Scott counties, so kind of got to explore bits of the state. And I also serve with Alfonso on Go Teach Kentucky.
This is Nora Rainsey. I'm in Western Kentucky, Callaway County. I'm currently teaching 1st grade, year 16. It seems like I'm getting old now. I've taught 3rd grade the most. I got out of a testing grade for a lot of the reasons why you would think. I was the first person in my family to go to college, and I was not supposed to go to college, but I taught every day since then, trying to encourage them, even at 6, that you can go to college if you want to go to college. I also am a Go Teach ambassador. I hold a state position with the Kentucky Education Association. I'm the senior ethnic minority director, and that work is really important to me. I'm currently working on some praxis cohorts that are keeping a lot of our aspiring educators of color from becoming a teacher because they can't pass a portion of the praxis. So we have a group ready to teach. There's just something holding them back. So I'm passionate about a lot of things, but I'm really excited about this work. I really hope. I'm just excited about being a part of listening tour and just hearing remarks from our students. I'm glad that we have them included. The small group of 4 that I was in, the parent was really refreshing to listening to. And I don't know, I think as teachers, it helps us keep us centered in what we're here to do and what our purpose is if we take time to listen to everybody, because we're there in the working ground every single day, and it's so easy just to focus on lesson plans and getting the job done, but we have to remember what we're really there for. And I'm living proof that teachers change lives, because I could be in the factory like every single one of my family members, beyond me, before me, behind me. I'm the only one. And a lot of people consider me a survivor in my family. And I was one of the teachers of the year last year. And I only tell you that because there was one teacher in my whole education that thought I would amount to anything. And I heard teachers tell me that I wouldn't amount to anything. And I knew they believed that, but I set out to prove them wrong. And that one teacher that believed in me and got me on the college path, she changed my life. And you guys are doing that every single day. And I don't want you to ever lose sight of that. That's why I show up for meetings like that. Maybe it's really cheesy, but we're asked to do a whole lot more than any other profession. And it would be so easy to be burnt out, but we got to keep each other fired up. We got to keep each other thriving, especially after living through a pandemic, because we survived it too. So that was way more than an introduction, but that's why I'm here.
I'll introduce myself really quickly, but don't be surprised if I pop out because I think I'm actually in the wrong room. But I am Sarah Snipes. I work at KDE as a former teacher as of last June. So what you just said, Nora, actually really resonated with me because I'm kind of speaking on the other side of a very burnout teacher after 6 years. I taught first grade and sixth grade. Yeah, I just really appreciate what you said there and the passion that I can tell you bring to the table for preparing educators and recruiting and retaining quality educators as well. But my role in the coalition is mostly to support the local laboratories of learning that were mentioned by Paul and the CIE team. So I manage the Kentucky Innovative Learning Network, which kind of host this group of districts who are going to take this work at the ground level and really take off with those innovations. So very excited to be part of this. And I'm just ready to sit back and listen to you all and let you take the lead as teachers and educators. So thank you all.
I think that's all, right?
So I was just going through the Padlet and I did realize that there's a scroll bar at the bottom. So if you move it to the right, there are more questions.
Read them for us. Be the leader.
The consequence one, how does the system urge you to address gaps in performance? I put K-Prep accountability and reports, and then if you're a Title I school, there are certain things that you have to do for your Title I funding. The last one's kind of throwing me though. How does the system provide incentives and disincentives to press you to change? I have a hard time with that one. Tenure, someone type tenure, being like corrective action plan. No one, I don't really know of many like, I know in our county, if you get like more degrees, you go up like different tiers and pay, rate changes. Yeah. Anybody else?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I think like the last two questions, and I don't know if maybe it will differ depending on what district you work in, or what you even teach, because I know as far as how does it urge you to address gaps? Well, so I teach social studies, and in JCPS, we're not even tested, or at least not right now, not currently. We will be in the upcoming years. But so those last two, other than I guess evaluations, but our evaluations still aren't even based on any kind of like gaps, or at least not learning or testing gaps anyway, which is where my mind keeps.
Yeah, I mean, if you're guided individually within the school to do like a growth goal, I mean, and if there are several principals in the district who have said your growth goal has to be based on the gap group or things like that, but I don't know. We always segregate our data when we do benchmark testing to pull out those gap groups and look at their progress. I don't know. And there's not a statewide evaluation, isn't it up to individual districts? Am I correct with that?
There is a policy or a mandate that you have to be evaluated every 3 years,
Okay.
but I don't know that it's streamlined. It's centered around the same.
Like, we use the Charlotte Danielson.
Yeah, we do too.
Okay.
And even during the pandemic last year, I was observed. It was my year.
So was
which
that
very interesting.
observer?
So does your school have you rate yourself first and then they rate you? Because I hate that. That's how our school does it. We get the full evaluation form, and before, it's our principal who evaluates us. Before they will say anything, we have to mark how we think we did. And then I'm never going to be one of those that is going to put exemplary on things, even though I know I should. And then the conversation goes from there. But I just wish that it would just be some positive feedback and work on this, because I am the teacher that loves positive feedback, but I'm most like, here's an area you could work on improving. I don't have a problem with that at all, but I don't like being the person that picks it out because I'm always doing that anyway.
We don't necessarily rate ourselves like on a like the 1 through 5, or not 1 through 5, but like the rating. But we do have to fill out like a bunch of questions. We have to answer a bunch of questions like, how did it go? How would you improve it? Like all that stuff, and a bunch of paragraphs about it. So kind of, but not picking that out specifically.
How do you guys feel about the level of accountability? Do you feel like there's too much or not enough with teachers?
I think sometimes, again, I'm going to go back to, I think it can depend on what you teach. Like, yeah.
So this is the perspective from somebody who is not from the country. In my opinion, I think the accountability that we are subjected to as teachers, sometimes it gets a little bit on our way of teaching. This is from the perspective of an outsider, okay? However, I do see the reasoning behind that, and with the whole framework for teaching from Danielson and all these things, I think they could be put to a good purpose. But like every tool, if you use too much the tool, it gets in between of the whole process. But that's as an outsider.
Hello, everyone.
Could you see me saying your name, Phoenicia? I missed you. How are you?
I'm well. It's good to see you too.
Well, what are you doing now?
I am back with KDE as an education recovery leader.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah, we moved, so I'm in the Richmond area now.
Oh, nice. Well, JCPS misses you.
Aw.
Well,
Hi, everyone else.
Hi, everyone. Want to go around and say hi? I'm Gretchen Morgan. I'm with CIE. Happy to be joining this group of school leaders for the conversation. Should I call on people? Dr. Gamble, do you want to introduce yourself? Your picture's right next to mine on my screen. So
I'm Stacy Gamble. I'm from Louisville, Kentucky. principal at Liberty High School.
Awesome. How about you, Julie? You want to say hello?
Hi, I'm Julie Osborne. I'm principal at Whitley County High School in southeastern Kentucky.
Great. Michelle, how about you?
I'm Michelle Walden. I'm the elementary instructional supervisor for Christian County Public Schools. I'm not sure I'm in the right group. I'm a district level leader and not a school level leader. Does that matter?
You can go out. There is a district level leader group too. So why don't you, if you go back out to the main room, Lauren, I'll put you in the other one.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but nice to meet you anyway.
Nice to meet you all.
See you, Michelle. Jennifer, can you say hello?
Sure. I'm Jennifer Larkins. I'm a program manager in the Office of Assessment and Accountability, Division of Assessment and Accountability Support. I'm also not sure I'm in the right breakout room. I'm not sure if there is one for the KDE group.
KDE folks are spread around to different groups. So you're here, and I think, Jennifer, the hope was that you or I would record while we're in here, but I can do that since
I already started it.
Oh, you did? Oh, great. Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome.
Oh yeah, I can see it. It says right on my screen, actually right over your head, Stacy. It says recording. So I should have figured that out. Great. Phoenicia, do you want to say hi to the group? I know that you had a little chat with Tara before, but you didn't really get to introduce yourself.
Yes, sorry. My name is Phoenicia Jones. I am currently an education recovery leader with KDE, but prior to that, I was an assistant principal in Jefferson County Public Schools.
Awesome. And Tara.
Hi, I'm from JCPS in Louisville. I am the principal at Ramsey Middle School.
Awesome. Well, all right. Well, if you have the ability to follow the link and get into the Padlet, you'll see that we have a place basically for each of these categories that we talked about just in the main session before coming in here. And if you all want, you could just have conversation and I'll try and track things along in the Padlet, but anyone should feel free to add things in the Padlet at any time. There's no Padlet policing going on. Anyone can get in there and do that. But I thought I would offer to take notes to follow your discussion. If you just tell me which question you're responding to, I'm happy to track notes. So can everybody see the Padlet? Jennifer, are you in a place where you can see it even though you're not on screen? Or I could read out if you're not.
I can see it.
Okay, great. So we have the comparability question. How do you get information from the system about your child, your schools, or your community? Identity. How does the system learn about you and your family or families inside your school? How does the education system interact with your community about the performance of schools? How does the school system share information to help you improve? That's under improvement. Timing. When does the system gather information about performance? Consequences. How does the system urge you to address gaps in performance? And then the stakes. How does the system provide incentives and disincentives to press you to change? So we could begin just anywhere where folks have interest. And like I said, I'll be quiet and take notes.
Well, I was going to ask exactly what system they were referring to, but I guess you clarified in that question 3 for the education system. So the one that stood out to me the most was consequences. How does the system urge you to address gaps in performance? I think the most concrete part of that would be assessment for learning and accountability at the state level as one of the main kind of drivers for change or impact to principals, impact to students for just like immediate things. But I know as a principal, that is very or should be lower on the list because it is not a regular form of assessment, nor is it a holistic measure of the school as a whole, which is one of the reasons why I joined this committee.
And I guess I'm going to add into that the timing piece. I mean, we assess the kids in May, and we don't get the results back until school has already started. And then when you get the results back, it's just it doesn't give you any informative data as to how to help the student and what the student did well and what they didn't do well on. So it's just a number basically to us at the end of the day. And it doesn't really give us informative information on how to move kids.
I would like to echo those sentiments because that's where my thoughts were as well on the timing of it and the specific feedback that it offers. If we're talking about state accountability and assessment, which I'm assuming since we're a state level group, that's where we would want to focus.
Yeah.
And I think in the question around community, how does the education system interact with your community about the performance of schools? And I'm thinking, you know, from the state level, that's typically on the website, but then local media stations tend to share information on schools. I think also a lot of times that may be when the schools are lower performing as in higher performing, but not the middle range groups. So I think you see a lot of press of those opposite ends, but not necessarily as much with the middle groups.
I'm also that as far as what's communicated to community members where I am, it really does not focus on growth. It's just a flat number. And then there's also some discrepancy in the communication at the high school level. Parents generally understand what an ACT score represented or has represented. When you switch to a K-Prep score, that is not as meaningfully translated to parents at a high school.
And in terms of identity, how does the system learn about us and our school family? I think kind of what Stacy was saying in terms of timing and change, there's just not a whole lot to say who this school is, what it does, culture and climate. In terms of learning about us as a school community, it's just numbers. You know, how many kids go to that school? What are the demographics? They might pull up behavior data, and that's kind of what gets shared, like Phoenicia was saying, in the media. There's not a narrative about where that school's been, what the culture and climate is like, because there's no other measurement points for that.
And then the consequences, especially in the jobs that we are in, the consequences of just removal of principals is not shown to be effective. Yet we continue to remove principals, and some of them are very strong leaders. It has nothing to do with leadership per se, but a test score. And so I might have made great bounds with students in my building, but because the score doesn't reflect a certain number, I don't get credit for that. And then I get removed because I don't have that certain number. But yet I did a lot of growth. So I don't know what that system would look like, but we're discouraging people to be principals at the end of the day.
You got it. Especially with changing populations. I know I can speak from a JCPS standpoint, but you know, we have the highest number of ESL students coming in, and we're still asked, you know, to hold them accountable in the same ways, including our ECE students. And we believe in the power of them being able to learn just as much as anyone else, but we have to be realistic that it's different, and it takes different levels of skills and multiple points. Like Stacy was saying, I think if we focus more on the growth of that, but an understanding of, you know, the weight that some of that has on schools, it's disproportionate to other schools that don't have that as much.
Also, by the way, if I'm summarizing poorly, I'm trying to just type real fast, but feel free to go in and edit notes too. Don't feel like it's, you know, inflexible. Tried to get that one from you, Tara. What about this? Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say around that question on improvement, there are things available like continuous improvement coaches that can come into schools and provide support. I don't know how, I guess, widely known those types of resources are to school leaders, but I do think that they're in place and available.
There's probably some fear around that too, to have folks coming in outside. I'm just being realistic. So they may know it exists. They may just not want anyone else to, you know, potentially have shed a negative light on their school, even if it may be helpful, unfortunately.
This might bring some added scrutiny. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. there's some distrust there, I think, between schools and KDE in general, if we're being honest.
Please, Tara, you don't trust me?
I trust you. I would have you in a heartbeat.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
I do have the continuous improvement coaches coming in the fall for a two-day PD. So
Some folks are using it and some folks are maybe a little hesitant. It's just a little bit of a mix. What about this topic of comparability? Like, how do you get information, and is the comparable information useful to you? There's a, part of the big sort of that narrative that Dr. Glass was talking about at the beginning of today about like why this data is so important is that we can have these comparisons. How do you all get comparative information, and is that comparative information helpful?
Most recent was the stars, and that was atrocious.
Can you say more about that?
Well, it didn't. Someone else can kind of jump into. It didn't last long, but we had the star ratings for schools that have kind of been stuck with us since, because we haven't been able to test for a while. So it's been hard to kind of shake that. So in terms of comparability, I don't think we have a real good assessing schools to even compare.
And I think, what are we comparing? I mean, like, I get it. I'm being facetious with this question, but like, we keep putting everybody in a box, feeling like everybody should be moving at the same level, doing the same thing at the same time. And we keep saying that we need to look at the individual child, but we haven't done that yet, because we've got to reach the 5-star limit, so are we really looking at individual children? Are we trying to get the 5 stars so that parents will want to come to our school? I mean, like, what are we really trying to do here at the end of the day? I get it. We want to raise student achievement, but I just think that looks differently for every child. I mean, I don't know if everybody has children or not, and you have multiple children, but what works for one doesn't work for the second one. And if you try to compare them all the time, what happens?
and not everybody has the same educational goals. So at the high school, it speaks to motivation and what that ultimate outcome should be.
And it's okay if you want to go to college and you want to work in construction. There's nothing wrong with it.
Absolutely. But it should be determined by the student.
Well, and this makes comparison kind of weird, right? Yeah. Gotcha.
If not, we're going to get a lot of good practice.
Yes, yes. And I was involved with the commissioners listening tour. So I went through that training, like the empathy interviewing training at that point a little bit, but that was a while ago. So I am ready to redo everything.
And where are you at now?
Well, no, I just was involved with those tours while they were happening within the last couple months, but I need a refresher course because I hopped in like halfway through that little training, but I hope this will kind of get me back and going with the empathy interviewing.
I've never done it before, so you will be able to teach me some things.
Well, I guess we can go ahead and get started because I think if the number 3 was gonna pop in, we would have that by now. If not, if they come in later, we'll be all good. So do you want to ask questions first or do you want me to? Doesn't matter to me.
I'll try it. I'll take a risk for learning and try to ask questions. Okay. So I guess I probably need to ask, which role group were you in earlier?
I'm a student, so some of these questions will not apply to me.
Yeah, so that It's good to know. So let me. Okay, so tell me about a time. Well, I guess I need to do the whole. I don't have to do all that. I just have to ask a question, right?
Yeah, I think, yeah, just a question.
So tell me about a time when your school or district learned something about you or your family that was helpful to you.
When I was in, I want to say the 8th grade, my principal did these weekly or bi-weekly talks with the community where he would, I think it was called like coffee with the principal or lunch with the principal. It was something like that, where it was like, it was a set event every week or every 2 weeks or however often it occurred. And he would invite whoever wanted to come in and talk with him about whatever issues were concerning them. And he started off, I remember he started off by asking about like just getting to know the community. He wasn't from our area. This is like his first or second year as our principal. So he wanted to really get to know our community. And I remember that really being kind of a turning point because principals that we'd seen in the past hadn't necessarily done that. And it just seemed more effective in getting to know our community because in my district, we're really tight knit, family oriented. A lot of our students are from like families who their parents and grandparents have gone to our schools. So it's something that when you get an outsider, they definitely need to familiarize themselves with the community. So that definitely was really helpful. And I think that it turned out really well for kind of the trajectory of his leadership just in general.
But how did it make you feel, or was it anything personal to you per se? When he did the talks that really inspired you?
I will say personally, like on an individual level, I did kind of want to reflect more like leadership and getting to know my peers after that kind of model, but also just learning to trust my principal in that way and knowing that he wants to improve the community in a way that is going to include the voices of all stakeholders. And he wants to get to know us and values our community, our background, and just each student and each family individually. Going into just how he's handling our education, that helped me trust him, which in general allowed me to kind of put the guards down and really start learning rather than like having to put up a fake, like just put up a front, kind of be guarded before I can really get down to trusting my principal and allowing like that relationship to really build.
Thank you. So I'm done with the interview part.
Okay. Do we want, yeah, I was about to ask, do we want to alternate, which I'm totally cool to do.
Yeah, and do you have any reflection for me or?
I mean, I think
you were very thorough too.
I'm just not sure how like how thorough they want us to be. So I think like overall, and you asked a nice follow-up question, which is good because that's something that like definitely is missed in a lot of things is asking follow-up questions. I think if you are ready, I will pop in my question. I'm gonna ask which stakeholder group were you in general?
School leader.
Gotcha. Right. Let me see. Okay. Tell me about a time when your community discussed your schools.
I am currently at an alternative school, which services overage undercredited students. So my school doesn't get discussed a lot within the community. And that's something that I'm trying to change is the perception that people have of my students. They come to me for a variety of reasons, some not their fault. home circumstances can cause a kid to get behind. I've had one kid that was a part of a family that was divorced, and during that divorce process and moving, it lost a lot of time of school and got behind academically. So it's a variety of reasons why kids come to me or students come to me. So I think people in the community have a perception that my students are BAD, bad, and they're not. So that is something that I plan to change in my role being there.
And how would you go about like initiating that conversation, since your community isn't really talking about your school right now in necessarily like a good light or anything at all? How would you go about initiating that conversation?
Well, we've got the perfect opportunity now because we're a big picture school. And so it's kind of like we're going to do a big, like, introduce who we are, what big picture really means, and how the community, because we're going to have to depend on the community to help us be in a big picture school. So we'll do like a news press introducing Liberty as a big picture school, and ways that the community can help and get involved, and hope that will spark interest in wanting to work alongside with us to help me help the students.
Love that. All right. Do we go on, like, do we do another set of questions, or how do we want to do that?
Do you want to practice some more?
That works for me.
Okay, sure. I don't have a question. This is I tell you what, can you tell me about the last time you got information about how you were doing in school?
The last time I got information about how I was doing in school, I guess I would honestly say the end of not this past school year, but the school year before that. This past school year, I've taken kind of like a different course of study. I've taken more dual credit classes. I've not really been in contact with teachers, and with it being in COVID and everything and not actually seeing them face to face every day, I haven't been able to really build that personal connection. And college professors are, try as they might, they're just not as, they don't connect as well as high school teachers do, because we don't see them every day. So this year I didn't really receive very much feedback at all about how I was doing, other than just putting grades into Infinite Campus. And even that was not always received timely or in a really effective way. But at the end of last school year, after the pandemic had started and we were just really closing everything out, my teachers took the time to personally reach out to me, or 2 or 3 of them did, and talk to me about how I was doing before we shut school down and after we shut school down, and just kind of asking me, like, checking in with me, asking me how I felt, what I felt like we needed to do going forward, how I could be best serviced, I guess, and just generally telling me, like, this is what you need to do going into next year if you want to continue along whatever path I'm going along. But that, I guess, would be the last time I received true feedback from teachers that wasn't just in the form of a grade in Infinite Campus.
So you have two very different comparisons that you can make there. So
Yeah.
how would that make you feel? And which, is there a method that works better for you?
I personally like that, like, one-on-one conversation better. I responded better to that one. It allows me to think on more of an individual level, and lets me know that my teacher took the time to recognize me and think through what would make me a better student, and like how I could improve that myself. And that kind of gave me a more, I can't think of the word, but like just a more specific, I guess, breakdown of what I can do going forward, rather than just seeing that grade and thinking, okay, well, how do I want to go from a B to an A? And not really getting any kind of feedback from a teacher, but getting that specific measurable. I know it's like a SMART goal. That's a lovely acronym that we like to use, but I think the SMART goal kind of way of doing things really helps me, because it's something that I can see, something that I can measure, just going forward, that's always really helpful for me.
Thank you.
Let's see. I will get my question up here. Document's refreshing, so it's gonna take it a second. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna try to adapt this kind of, I guess, a little bit more for principal role, district leader role. Tell me about the last time you wanted to do something different than what was officially required by your district, like something innovative, fun, different.
So that's us being a big picture school.
Yeah.
So with the big picture model, I would say, Audrey, what are you interested in doing? What are you interested in learning about? What is it? I mean, it could be a subject, it could be a topic, it could be a job, whatever you're interested. It could be, I want to learn how to sew, or my car just broke down the other day and I want to get my tire fixed. And I want to learn how to do it because it took that man 2 hours to get to me, AAA, and I want to learn how to do it on my own. Okay, well, let's learn about it, Audrey. And so you would develop a 9-week project on changing the tire of a car. So we would hook you up with people, experts in the field. And you would have an essential question, and then you would just keep digging deeper, and you would do research. And so with this question that you just asked me, it requires as teachers to look at your standards a little bit differently, because I can't just have Audrey come to class and sit and get. Now I have to ask Audrey, what is your project about? And how does it fit into the curriculum that I'm teaching? And so all the teachers will meet with you and develop a whole like personalized plan for you. But me as the English teacher, it's not me just checking off standards. It's what does Audrey need and what is she getting from this project? And so, and then looking at, okay, you're going to do research. Well, that's an English standard. You're going to do reading and writing and citing resources and da, 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 da. So you're getting credit for all of that work. But at the same time, you might be exploring some historical concepts that go along with tires and da, 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 da. So then your history teacher comes along and says, oh, you're going to get credit here too. And then your math teacher is going to come along and talk to you about the dimensions and what you look for in a tire and da, 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 da. So you might get math credit. So it just kind of spirals. So the piece where it's different is because teachers are so used to being given a curriculum and checking off the list. I got all this, I got 3/4 of my curriculum covered. Where now I'm going against the grain and saying, put your curriculum aside for a second. Look at the student, Audrey, and let's personalize instruction for her about what she wants to learn. And let's make her dig deeper. And you're excited about the learning because it's something you want to do. And it's not a checklist anymore. I mean, we guide you through that process, but it's different. So I literally had to say, don't do what the district told you to do. So, and and they're looking at me like, but what if we get in trouble? And I had to say, I'm going to get in trouble, not you. So don't worry about it. And so that was going against the grain.
Yeah. And like exactly what you just said at the end there, like, what if we get in trouble? So could you expand a little more on like that reaction from your teachers, but also from like higher up in the district? Like, what did those reactions kind of look like? And how did you as an individual kind of like feel about those, respond to those? Any positive or negative criticism?
It wasn't, I haven't received negative criticism yet, because in actuality, what we started this in the beginning of the pandemic. And so it was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe, we're doing this. And now a year later, school year later, they're like, we're so glad we did it, because now our district is saying, what are y'all going to do to make school different for your kids? And we're saying, we've already started that. So it's actually, we feel like we're a step ahead of the rest of the district. So we're feeling really good about ourselves, because we are looking at school differently and trying to re-engage the student that doesn't really like school. in different kind of ways and meet their needs. So
Yeah. And I really like that, like everything that you talked about with the whole, designing it around what the student wants to learn, gets them engaged, gets them excited. Very much like that. Thank you.
you're welcome. It's been some really interesting topics.
Yeah.
And we as educators are learning with the students, and it's awesome because I don't know how to change a tire. So when you come and you do your presentation, you're teaching me in essence how to change a tire.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I know I get excited when my teacher like lets me pick out of 3 books which one to read in English class. So like the thought of that all together is just, that's fabulous. Yeah.
We're trying to even get away from the 3 books.
Yeah.
Say, what do
Pick
you
a book.
pick a book? Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, I love that.
Now we're gonna make sure that you're choosing a book. You're not choosing an elementary style book because Audrey, you're smart. So I need you to
Pick something challenging. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's been a pleasure talking to you.
It has. I know this was an exercise, but I learned a lot. So it was really fun.
Me too. Because I'm taking some notes of things that you said and taking it back to my teachers. So that was awesome. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you for sharing. And I did not do the note taking part of this when we did it with Commissioner Glass, on the listening tour. So I'm getting to do that now. And it's I'm remembering a lot more, which I know is a statistically proven studied thing that if you take notes, you remember more, but I do not always remember to do that. So I have some solid notes here. So thank you again for sharing.
Thank you. And how are you, a junior?
Yeah, I'll be a junior next year.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that is so neat. That's awesome that you're a part of this as well, because your input is really, really needed.
Well, my superintendent's on this whole group as well, which I thought was interesting because we don't typically get on groups together. We run in similar circles because I do other education things, but it's always interesting to see other people that I actually know and have talked to before. So it's an interesting group of people, and I'm excited to see what all we do.
So are you interested in getting an education when you graduate?
Probably. I have no clue. I'm a very indecisive person. So probably my mom's a teacher. My grandmother was a teacher. We've got lots of teacher. Both my parents work for KDE now. So, it's all education all the time. So
well, look me up in Jefferson. If you come to Jefferson County, make sure you look me up.
Gotcha.
I'll help you get a job.
Yes, thank you. Well, it's been nice to see you.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Reverend Randolph, so not 12 yet, but that would be fine. My quiver can be very full. And it's really a pleasure to get to work with all of you, and thank you for your participation.
I'm Ed. Go ahead, Missy. Ladies first.
Thank you, Ed. I appreciate that. Calling me a lady. Hello, I'm Missy Higgins, and I'm a retired educator from Fayette County Public Schools. I have served various roles in Fayette County. At one time, I was a principal. I also went on to finish out doing the thing I love the most, which was teaching science in an elementary school. I'm a adopted mom of 2 children that I adopted at a young age and took them through Fayette County Public Schools. And I had to be an advocate in getting them the accesses that they need. One was gifted, one was special needs, but yet they had been a minority. The issues were varied, and I had to do a lot of advocating. Even though I was a member, I had to take off a different hat and become a very strong advocate as a parent. But as a retiree, I substitute a lot here in Fayette County at the schools that most substitutes won't go to. So I have a lot of eye-opening experiences. I have a lot of humbling experiences, and I'm very passionate about seeing the big picture and advocating for the forgotten children, as I call them. I'm also a member of the NAACP. I serve on the education committee. This is my passion. This is my role in my other organizations. I always am about asking the tough questions And I have a very strong feeling when people mention the word all, and because I don't see all children getting the access that they should have and need. So just, I'm like, I will poke the bear.
Well, I'm Ed Massey. I'm now a representative in House District 66, which is Boone County. I did serve on the Boone County School Board for 22 years, had the privilege to serve as the Kentucky School Board Association president and the National School Board Association president. 3 daughters, 2 are teachers, elementary teachers, 1 in Kenton, 1 trying to get hired in Boone. And the third is the Director of Finance and Director of Conference Planning for the Tennessee School Boards Association. My mom and dad are both retired educators. So education's been my life. I've been in it for about 31 years, kind of like Lou. I've known Lou and Bridget for a long, long time. I'm honored to be here. I serve on the Education Committee in the House, as well as the Judiciary Committee. I'm chair of Judiciary. And then I also serve on L&O. I've had a tremendous experience being here. I got to work a lot on pensions last year. And dear friends with not only Lou, but another member of the board, which is Randy Poe, which was the superintendent in Boone County. And we actually have a little company we formed together called the National Center for Transformational Leadership Strategies that consults with school districts. So glad to be here. My education's always been a passion of mine. So it's great to be with the leaders, some that I know and some that I don't. I'll get to know all of you. The stranger to me is only someone I haven't met yet. So we'll continue this work and look forward to working with each and every one of you.
Thank you all for sharing that. And it was really wonderful to hear your different passions come out, because I think that's going to be so important to this group and to our conversations. And I did want to circle back to Keisha, because you had kicked us off with a short and sweet intro. And if there's anything else that you wanted to share by way of connection, I wanted to give you the space.
Oh, well, because I was thinking 5 minutes was probably for everybody. So I was like, I don't want to take up anyone's time. But I am born and raised in Lexington. I have lived in Georgetown since '97. I have 1 son and a 16-month-old granddaughter. So education is a big deal to me. My mother works for Kentucky Education Association and has for almost 40 years. And so in my family, education is everything. So I work for Head Start, I've been at Community Action Council here in Lexington. August 1st will be 23 years, where I was frontline staff and now we're an open office space. And so, so anyway, I have been here family service staff, so I have worked with families directly in helping them with goal setting and enrollment into our Head Start programs. And now I oversee our eligibility and family engagement services under the direction of our Head Start director. I also am a member of the Scott County NAACP, and I am a recent inductee into the Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. So I work with Lexington Rescue Mission here in locally, and I actually sit with the Pritchard Committee. So I have taken myself and I'm trying to transform into what my true passions are. And so a lot of that has to do with service. And so that's what I believe I have been called to do. And so that is what I put myself into a position to do, which is to serve. So just thank you for having me.
Awesome. So now with 4 minutes remaining, I will ask us to turn our attention to the activity. I put the link in the chat, but we can also just discuss out loud, and I can be a scribe in the Padlet if that's helpful. And so the activity is to think about your experiences and your engagement with the education system along the dimensions that will be part of our inquiry together. And I want to just read those dimensions, and then we can kind of go where you see fit. So the first is comparability. How do you get information from the system about your child, your schools, or your community? The second is identity. How does the system learn about you and your family? Next is community. How does the education system interact with your community about the performance of schools? Next is improvement. How does the system share information to help you improve? Timing. When does the system gather information about performance? Consequences. How does the system urge you to address gaps in performance? And stakes. How does the system provide incentives and disincentives to press you to change behaviors? So we'll open it up, and we have about 2 minutes to get as far as we can, and that's fine.
I guess I'll start with the comparability, like how do we get information from the system? Like I said, by using the information with my son, I know that there were, besides test scores or reports home, I also had team meetings with my son. My son did have an IEP, and so those team meetings were important for keeping up with his progress.
One of the things we did in Boone County is we do dispositional hiring practices. And as a governance individual for the board, we would set the dispositions for different personnel. And of course, board members don't have anything to do with personnel. We were just aware of what was going on. And so certain traits and considerations were taken into consideration when we hired employees. And that's to make sure the best interest of the children are always considered. And that was along the lines with growth and development of the way we used our district. So I would use that as a community standard, not only as well as an ability to get things out about the students, because once those teachers are in that mold, they all kind of flowed through in this pattern. We worked on what I call vertical and horizontal alignment.
And Ed, I wanted to be sure I had that correct under the community heading. Is that what you were suggesting?
Yeah, put that under the community, because that was basically, that's how we hire people, to make sure that they were a fit for what we do.
Great.
Jenny, just adding quickly in like the 30 seconds remaining, you know, when I think back to when my children were in school, that annual assessment, of course, was important for me understanding where my children were, their report card. And then from a community standpoint, the annual results of the accountability model were important as a local school board member and as a parent in a local district to understand how my school or district was performing relative to other schools and districts in the state.
And we may run out of time for further comments, but this Padlet will remain open. So if folks have other thoughts or want to, you know, agree and add on, or disagree and have a different perspective from what was shared, please feel free to continue to mark up the Padlet.
Okay. Thank you for your help.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then I currently work with Go Teach Kentucky to help recruit new teachers. So that's been nice.
Thank you for doing that.
Of course.
So Jenny, we all just started by saying hello. I hadn't met Lindsay before, and Michelle, I don't know if you've met Lindsay or not.
I have not. It's nice to meet you, Lindsay. I'll introduce myself. I'm Michelle Hunt. I'm from Fleming County. I have been in Fleming County my whole career. I've been an elementary teacher, a principal, and now I'm serving as the Chief Academic Officer for Fleming County Schools. Also do Title I, Title IX equity. And I work with Lou a lot. I call her over to our county a lot.
And I owe you a text from this morning, but I had to come home and check my notes.
That's okay. I know you're busy.
My boyfriend's from Fleming County, so that's kind of interesting.
Okay, who's that?
His name's Corey Elam. We went to school there.
Or not.
Yeah, he
That
has
is
a
a
sister
small
named
world,
Vicky.
though, huh?
Yeah, they were all in Head Start, but.
Awesome.
All right. Anybody want to jump in and get started on this?
Let's see. Pull that back up.
I'm happy to do whatever.
So we need one interviewer and one interviewee. Keep in mind the interviewer needs to have the document open so that you can, while interviewing, practice typing in quick form notes as you go. And notes, you know, are meant to be, like, don't try to process it, just type as you go and process later. So I would say from a tech support standpoint, whoever's in a place where you're able to type might want to be the interviewer.
I can type or I can answer questions. Lindsay, what I'm assuming it's you and I.
Okay. Let's see here. If you don't mind to do the interviewing so I can kind of get the process down, I think that would be really helpful.
I can definitely do that.
Awesome.
All right,
Thank you.
Miss Lindsay. Tell me about a time, last time that you got information about how your child or school was doing.
Sure. So I actually am a stepmom too, so I'll go from that role. Last time we got anything was just report cards, and that's typically how we receive all of our information. We have 3 girls, middle schooler, high schooler, and an elementary student, and that's what we get are the report cards. The youngest, they also use Class Dojo, so we'll get updates through that as well.
All right. So on the report cards, do they leave notes, or is it just pretty standardized report card?
Just like those little drop down comments that you have in IC that you can apply for everybody is typically what we get.
All right. And then, like, gosh, I hope I'm doing this right. Somebody jump in, Lou, or somebody else jump in. Do you go to the next question? I think you do.
You're going great. Or you could drill down and ask her how she feels about that kind of feedback.
Yes. Empathy. All right, Lindsay. So how do you feel about that feedback with your stepchildren? Does that help you as a parent?
No. Luckily, like, the youngest was in 2nd grade and I've taught 2nd grade, so I can look at that and, you know, kind of do some observational things myself to know where she needs help. But it'd be nice to have that paper, give some more details. I can be like, hey, it's not me being a teacher, it's me seeing this is what you need to work on to kind of differentiate those roles. And then with the older 2, you know, it's difficult because, you know, I'm dipping my toes into the world of middle school as our 8th grader gets ready to transition to being a freshman. So having the idea of, you know, what they need more so, I'm more than willing to give them support. But if I don't have a real foundation, they are in Fayette County, so my middle schooler has all sorts of kind of grading that I have never seen. She'll get like a 1 through an 8, and then other things have different grades from. I can't keep up with it, and that's difficult. I'd love to have more of a guide on how to help her and understand her grades. I like that it's broken up into categories, but, you know, she started 7th grade at Tate's Creek, having been at Morton, and so we got in and then pandemic started. So I don't really fault the school for not getting that out, but like, it would be nice to have that. And then the other one's a junior, and we didn't find out that she was like failing an AP class until December when they asked her to leave. And so it would have been nice to have those connections to help them instead of just let them kind of like flounder. And especially being a teacher and not being able to help them, it's frustrating.
Does the districts that your kiddos live in, do they offer any parent support, student-led conferencing, anything to help parents better understand the information?
It's more like teacher-based. With the younger one, I feel like elementary schools are typically the ones that will give that. And then middle school and high school, at least in my experience, I've not seen that as much. You know, we'll get emails here and there, and luckily our high schooler, the guidance counselor, is great. So if we need anything, we've been able to go to the guidance counselor, but no, there could be some more communication for sure.
All right, any other follow-up questions, Lou, that you think, or Jenny, that you think we should ask?
I think you're doing great. I think the part she mentioned about the, you know, failing out of the AP might be a sub-story to ask her to say a little bit more about. And, but other than that, I think you're doing great.
So when we go, I guess I'm going to ask some questions now then, because I already have some people parents that I'd like to interview that I think will tell a story. So when she goes into that AP class, then is that the time to tell me more about that? What does that look like? Do you ask about how often you and the teacher communicated throughout the year? Are those the kind of things we're looking for?
I think so, yeah. And the one danger about a sub story is that they'll actually take you on a tangent that's not related. So as much as you can frame, when you ask that follow-up, frame it around the question that we're here to talk about, which is the getting the information piece of it. Because the risk in that is that they'll go off and talk about AP and like have other kinds of opinions. And so try to keep it entrained on what we're here to talk about. But yes, yeah, I think that's right.
Does anybody else want to practice?
Lindsay.
Yeah, I'll try. I think I'm at the right
I can do it as a parent role.
Okay. All right.
My parent lens on. I'm headed to the ballpark after this.
There you go. All right. You know why I'm doing it, so I'll skip that part just for time's sake. Let's see
I
here.
probably skipped that part too. Sorry.
Let's see here. Sorry, my computer is from 2013, so that's helpful. Okay. Let's see here. Okay, so could you tell me about the last time you wanted to do something different than what was officially required by your school or district?
So thinking from a parent standpoint, I think that the last thing I would have wanted to do different is for me to receive information from my son based on his graduate profile and identifying his strengths and weaknesses or his growth opportunities, opposed to requiring him to take the state assessment in the midst of coming back from a pandemic. Lou, don't record this.
No, I love it. Thanks for coming at me.
Yeah, I can fully understand.
I just saw a lot of anxiety that was not needed. To tell me things that I already know as a parent. With the state assessment, I think getting results back, and hopefully it'll be more expedited at this point with it being online, but getting results back in October is an autopsy for my son. And I would prefer to know in benchmark pieces how he's doing. And I really want teachers to see him as a student, not a standard, because he does struggle in some areas that he needs help with, but I also want them to see him holistically and the strengths that are him and what he is good at. So that would be what I would have wanted to do differently.
You kind of answered a lot of the questions in and of itself in that explanation. I think some things that I would probably ask then are just, how do you think that we could better prioritize so we could get to know your son as a person?
Sure. So with our graduate profile at Fleming County, we have 8 indicators that we utilize to really build the foundation of our profile, and knowing his strengths in each indicator. For instance, teamwork is always a strength of his. He will get along with whoever, whenever. Communication, I would dare to say he struggles in, because he does have a lot of anxiety around that. He did not get that from me, from his daddy. So just giving him opportunities to learn how to become a more effective communicator, I think would benefit him greatly as he moves forward to be college career and, of course, life ready.
Okay. I'm trying to think. Is there and I'm totally new to this. I'll just say.
Yeah, it's not a typical probably parent.
You know a lot more.
Teacher questions to ask you.
You can, thinking from a parent, I will tell you that it has changed my perspective. And Lou kind of knows my story too. I have 3 kids. My oldest is the high flyer. She just breezes through. She's, and then my middle struggles. And I guess it's changed my lens, I think, on standardized assessments. I don't hate them, but I don't love them either, because I don't think they tell his story. and they can't capture his work ethic when his work ethic's probably 10 times stronger than my daughter's ever thought about being. I guess it doesn't tell the story of the employability skills that kids really need to be successful in life. I think a mix.
I agree with
is
that
needed.
fully.
So here's a great point where I would ask, because I think when you interview a parent who's also in the education system, you will tend to get more of the opinions and less of the emotion. So I think this point is actually an interesting point where you can ask her, because it sounds like there's some worry behind that. If you're not getting accurate information, what worries you about that? Like, try to steer us back into the emotion in your questioning. And so, Michelle, I pitch that to you. What worries you about that when you don't feel like you're getting reflective information about your children?
So I think specifically in my role, it's hard being the parent because you speak report cards. We get report cards. Case is such a sweet kid. He's doing so well. I see A's and B's on his report card, which are not reflective of true grading practices of the standard. I work with him at night. I know how he reads. I know how he comprehends. I know his explicit, implicit. You know, his questioning, his comprehension. It doesn't reflect what the standard is. So what worries me is, what are we grading? You know what I mean? What are those practices? And if I were a parent like my husband that's not in the education system, we would never know that Case is really struggling because his feedback isn't reflecting it. So are we grading kids because they're good? Because they sit in class and they do what they're supposed to do? Or are we really helping parents help their children to become good learners? So I think that's probably my biggest worry with our system.
And Michelle, I wonder if, and I know a little bit more about Case's backstory, but do you worry that he internalizes messages from the school that you don't want him to receive?
Maybe.
Does he pay much attention?
Yeah, so I think that I have to be the one that gives him a sense of urgency, that we've got to do some catching up, Case. You know, he gets told a lot. He's a quiet kid. He's your perfect little, I'll sit in your class. I'm not going to speak unless you speak to me. I will raise my head. I will not break a rule. And I think a lot of times, Lou, he gets graded on that. I think that he's going to always know his spelling words because we're going to make sure he knows them. He's going to be ready for his reading test without fail. But I don't think that our grading practices reflects where he is in mastery. I think it reflects on him as just a good kid.
Yeah.
And that worries me because how many other parents that, you know, don't know the system, are we setting kids up for failure? I don't know. I mean,
I think I can totally relate to that. Like even different districts and having been in different districts, seeing the different ways that people grade, there are times where yes, it's out of points, but do the points truly reflect the understanding? And, you know, we've got standards-based grading, which I feel like can be helpful. But once again, you know, are we grading that student based on what they can actually do or what? Like, I think there needs to be some sort of sense of uniformity as to how we do things and make it more narrative based. So like you said, you can look at a report card. Oh, okay, well, they've got all 4s out of 4s. That's great. Okay, my kid's doing well. Yeah, they might be able to do the assignment because they're being coached through it, but what's the backstory?
Sure. You know, I use that example of with my daughter, with her learning continuum on MAP as we're training for, you know, these impact coaches and these growth coaches. If you look at her MAP scores, she's a high flyer. If you break down her learning continuum, she has some 3rd grade standards that she could work on, some 5th grade standards, but she also has high school standards. But if we never look at that lens, then we gap her further by the time she gets to high school and maybe needs that 3rd grade measurement standard for whatever course. So I'm a huge fan of standards-based grading. If I could figure out how to make it manageable for elementary teachers that teach all subjects, we would have jumped on that a long time ago.
I could work with you on that.
Love it. Love it. Yes.
Networking. I'm wondering for either one of you, hearing the stories and thinking about your all's feelings and perceptions as family members, have either of you had a chance to give feedback to your school? Have they ever sought feedback from you in terms of the family perceptions of the way student progress is communicated?
Do we want the politically correct answer? Okay.
No, not at all.
Okay. So this is my first year in Clark County. And like I said, I do ESL students. And if from what I've seen, they
we are being recorded. I do just want to let you know. I don't know how un-PC you're going, but
got it. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that. No, I would like to have more involvement with our diverse families and talking with the principals, and it seems like they want that, but we don't totally know how. And I think, my experience is not the same as one of my more diverse learners' families. So I think that needs to be a huge priority, is how can we include these families who are not your textbook families, especially if you're in a school like I am, where pretty much, as far as I know, everyone is Caucasian, and just kind of including that, or expanding that lens so we can reach who needs to be reached.
Thank you.
I don't know, Lou, if you were it's been a training a long time ago, I can't remember, but to come to the reality that no parent wants to be a bad parent.
Yes.
And to not assume that they want to be bad parents is really crucial in the diversity lens, that everybody's doing the best that they know how to do. So I think that's super important.
I love that quip that all the families are sending the very best kids they've got to school.
That's right.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for sharing and participating. This was awesome.
Good job.
Welcome back, everybody.
Hello. Might just be two of us.
Okay, so I'm used to having two screens, and I'm home, and so I don't have two screens, so I'm very slow moving on all this.
I have mine as a split screen here, so hopefully this will work out. Earlier I was trying to do Padlet and type at the same time. It was not working out well.
Yeah,
so I see Travis joined us, so there's three of us. So who wants to interview? Who wants to be interviewed? Has anybody done this before?
I've not done this before, so.
Yeah, I've participated in some empathy interviewing before. We've done some things with students and family members, parents, family members, etc. I'm not very good at it, but.
Does anybody want practice with one of us before you do it with a real, well, we are real people, but you know what I mean? I don't mind being interviewed or interviewing, so.
Yeah, I don't care to participate in anything. I think it's important definitely that we know what we should be doing when we go out there to do this. I don't care to practice an interview, if that helps. If somebody wants to interview me, I'll answer as frankly as I can.
Okay. How about
everyone? I was just popping in to say hi. I'll just be listening and learning too.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hello. So Travis, would you rather observe this time, or do you want to ask the questions?
I'll do whichever one you want to do. It doesn't matter to me.
I really don't care. Do you feel like you would like some practice?
Yeah, I've done them before. Like I said, so I mean, if you want to try, go for it, and then we can gladly switch out if we want to. We don't have to rotate between the two of us. We can all maybe get a little time in here. Maybe. How's that?
I love that idea, especially since we have 20 minutes.
Yeah,
so first of all, I like to make sure I say people's names right. Is it Tresea?
It's Tracy.
It is Tracy. I'll see.
It is. Yeah.
And
so So we can start the empathy there. Sure. Tracy Moracy is, it's pronounced and it's a rhyming name that I married into. So
I love it. I just have an extra A at the end of my name, and people turn it into all kinds of things. So there we have something a little in common, but
I can see why you would start focusing on how you pronounce someone's name, because you've experienced it so many times. Yeah.
Well,
So
thank
did I
you.
pronounce it Nora? Is that right?
It's just Nora. It actually has an extra A because my dad wanted a boy named Aaron. And now I have a boy named Aaron if you flop it around.
Okay, that makes sense. That's really interesting.
Yeah. So I don't know. It kind of gives you a little icebreaker there too.
It absolutely does. It definitely stands out. I think it always makes a difference in your life when you have a different name.
Definitely. And definitely my students' life, especially if they're from another culture. I like them, even if they have to tell me 5 or 6 times, tell me your name as many times as you need to. If I say it wrong, correct me, because I want you to say my name right too. And don't give me a nickname. I don't want to be Miss R. I want you Miss Ramsey. It's with an N. It seems like it should be simple, but I've been called Ramsey and everything else you can imagine. It's not a common name in Kentucky. I think it might be a Tennessee name, but so even in first grade, kids are by then 6 years into their life are used to their names, and they want their name to be right. So. And they should be. So
it's good.
Yeah. Can you think of a time in your life or your child's life where something as personal as a name or something else came up with school, like a story related to that? We'll just tie that into the interview.
Well, I can tell you that the last name I have there's only 2 in the field of education in the state, my husband and myself. So it's a very uncommon name, Moracy, it's Italian. And with being the superintendent of the district that I'm in, my poor children do stand out pretty quickly whenever a teacher gets them on their roster. So I think that does have a little bit of an impact. I worry about that. And that was one of the reasons I hesitated before applying, because I was already in the district and was being asked to step up, but I really thought long and hard about it, and they were my reason for doing it, but they were also my reason for maybe not doing it, because I did not want them to have an extra burden.
Yeah, I personally always go back to my kids too, and honestly, they're my biggest cheerleaders. Like my oldest girl is taking care of my 6-year-old right now. He has not popped in on the Zoom once, surprisingly. So
I think all of us like kids, so if he does, it's okay.
Well, he's a character. He might tell you his latest joke or not. I don't know. He is, if you ever need an advocate to why kindergarten should be fully funded, he just finished up, and that teacher might deserve a double raise this year. So.
I understand.
How about, I love that she asked about, I love that story that they shared about getting feedback, because I feel like middle school and high school, I just don't, as a parent, I didn't get as much feedback. It's that paper, and a lot of times it's honestly mailed to the house. Like, I don't mind grades because I am the teacher, but I wrote down narrative is best. How do you like hearing, let's go the positive direction. How do you like getting positive feedback from the school? Can you think of the last time you got positive feedback from your child's teacher or school?
You know, I'm very lucky because they have quick access to me. So I think it's a little different, but I receive texts and I receive emails directly to my account just saying, hey, I saw Maria do this today. But even because I am in the school often and out visiting, they'll stop me and tell me something really cute that one of them did. But I've also had several of them on Facebook groups and in social media kind of do shout outs for the students, and my child has been included in some of that, and that is a proud moment, as long as they're safely allowed to be on Facebook and you can show their identities. But some of those things are really pride boosters, because then the parent gets to share it out again and show off to their friends. But honestly, I'm really blessed just because I think the whole district has my number. So I'm pretty lucky that they will just send me a direct message. whether it's they forgot their lunch or they helped someone clean up at a table somewhere. So, and thank goodness my kids are well behaved and academically inclined. So I don't get that many bad, it's usually he forgot his lunch or something like that. But so I feel pretty grateful in that aspect. But I do think we definitely have to keep that a modern approach, but then keep in mind that we have a lot of grandparents who are raising children. And by them doing that, they don't understand a text. They don't understand an email. Sometimes a nice handwritten note is what we've got to do because they understand that.
We do, we're Lakers at my school, and we do little Laker lifesavers. And our principal encourages us to do at least one a month, but I write every kid's name on there at the beginning of the 9 weeks. And each week I try to do meaningful ones, but I try to send out at least one to each family, at least 1 in 9 weeks, because you need to get in 2 or 3 positive interactions before you ever have to call about. I believe that. And I have 5 kids, so mine are not always a good phone call. I have 2 that are just like me, and I've been in the corner a lot for talking too much, believe it or not. So I've had both kinds of calls, but I like sending out those, when she said meaningful, like you can tell that they really know your child because they picked out something that you can just see them doing. Like one of the first injuries my current kindergartner ever had was he was at daycare there at the preschool setting, and the marching band was going by and he was playing, and they called me like frantic because he ran into a tree looking at the color guard girls. And they were so afraid that I was going to be upset because he had this goose egg and they had like the whole accident report and everything. And I was just tickled pink to have, I'm going to like frame this accident report and give it to him when he's like teenager, because this was like the first accident ever. But I don't know. I just, I think being a mama helps us. I would have never picked you out as a superintendent on the beginning of this breakout session. So I'm glad I got to talk with you. I'm going to let, is it Travis? I forgot already. I'm going to let him take over because I feel like I've talked too much.
No, that's great. That's great. Do you guys want to switch rows, or do you want
sure, we can.
Tracy, do you want to interview me?
Sure.
And then we can
let me look and see if I can find one of the questions. I'm trying to figure out how this little Are you guys looking at like there's a table of questions? Have you seen that on this form?
Is yours blue and white? Like about halfway down, it says, who should I interview? And it says, how should I start? That's what I was looking at. The questions are even further down.
Okay, so Travis.
Starts on page, I'm showing page 2, maybe.
Yeah, I'm looking at a good question for you. Travis, I think one of them that might fit would be, tell me about a time when your community discussed your schools.
Yeah, so we actually just recently had a conversation with community stakeholders related to, we're currently in a visioning process within our district and trying to formulate that. And so we've had a few different conversations. One was with just like community leaders, like our judge executive, mayor, some of those folks in the room. And then we had one with more business leaders, those individuals who are hiring our students within our community. So that was an opportunity for us to talk about our schools in that setting. And then we also went out and spent time with the Rotary Club, just talking about the process, and also going through some of these empathy type interview questions with them, more as a whole group, which was a little more awkward. It wasn't as easy to get those personal stories in that process, but it was at least a kind of a community conversation related to that. So they've been really good. We've just been asking them some questions about what it is, how we're doing, really kind of taking stock. What are those kind of skills and dispositions that you as a community leader value for our kids, and what is it that, we ask them questions even about what their experience in school was like if they were in their schools. What was your experience like? Just some of these same types of questions that we've been engaging them with.
See, we just started doing this exact same concept that you're talking about because we were building our strategic plan. This is, I think I was 6 months into my first year when this pandemic hit. So, you know, you always want to start a fresh conversation with folks in the community about things. And so I can completely relate to what you're saying about you want to get different fashions of folks together and get their viewpoints. And I think some of these questions that I'm seeing on here are very good. We did the same thing. We did our political side, and we also did our business leaders and talked to them about, you know, what do you want kids to know? And what we came out of, you know, I showed data with them and said, okay, you know, in 2010, Greenup County Schools was considered a PLA school. And I arrived in 2014 and they were still PLA. And we've gotten them out of PLA in 2015, which had nothing to do with me. It was just the system was finally starting to kick in. But, you know, since then, we went to a school of distinction. And I look at the economy around our community and it's still exactly the same. So my question for the businesses were, what can we do to get these kids to want to stay? Because we have done the whole test score, jump through the hoops, look at the data, and drag kids kicking and screaming to, you know, get their ACT or get their certification. What can we do so that they have some reason to be here at the end? And they gave us wonderful feedback and we got a lot of great data. So I'm actually meeting with them again in 2 weeks just to look at the data and say, okay, this is what you told us and this is what we're doing about it. So that they're getting some feedback and understanding that we did hear them. We heard what they asked. And so they're actually going to team up with some of our ATC folks and they're going to come in and do on-site job inspections of the students' work so that they can get an idea of what the students are learning, but also give the students feedback on their projects. So I'm kind of excited about that part of it, and getting their feedback is going to be huge on our next steps.
Yeah, what we found is our community, both business partners, community leaders, even our parents are proud of our schools. I mean, you know, we don't have the best test scores in the state of Kentucky by any means, but they're incredibly proud. Our teachers, there is a great sense of community. And, you know, as we move forward, we have to think about how we honor that, that pride that they have in our schools, because we definitely don't want to lose that. And we want to help them think about what's possible beyond the current state of our schools, right? And in some cases, they may be a little hard to think about that right now. So I think it's up to us, up to our school leaders, you know, myself, our Board of Education, everybody to really begin to ask the right questions that really push the thinking of our people to really to consider maybe what else we could do jointly together, collaboratively, to create something more dynamic for our students.
I agree. Are you going to start, do you do a lot of cooperative learning with kids out into the community? Do you have a lot of co-ops and transition ready, work ready?
We do have some. It's probably, I would not say it's as robust as we want it to be. We have a really strong tech center, but I don't believe we formed good partnerships. Or let me rephrase that. We have good partnerships, not strong partnerships that we need to get more kids out into our local business and industry, having those externships, internships, etc.
I completely agree, and that's where the policy part of, you know, ADA and requirements and waivers, I think that's something we have to look at, because students are not the same learners that we are. I mean, I know I'm preaching to the crowd, but we have to make more real life experiences for our kids. And one of the challenges we have found is that there is not a lot of economic structure around our school district. So our opportunities for our students to go out into businesses and get jobs is it's very limited. So we're looking at also teaching them how to build businesses. So for instance, like our animal science class is now going to have a grooming business. You know, every little area of the ATC is also going to sell a product and have a fair and show how to sell things and understand how to start their own business, because I'm starting to feel like that's the only way our kids are going to have something in our area is if they don't become the business owners. So that's kind of where we're headed. And I'm hoping by being a part of all of this, we can influence that and make that a little bit more possible for them. So. Well, I feel like I interviewed myself. You guys did great getting me to talk.
It's incredibly hard to really, as the interviewer, to stay really focused on the questions and getting the person to talk, right? I mean, it's incredibly challenging to do that for sure.
Yeah.
All right. I think we still have a little bit of time. Does anybody else want to be interviewed? I guess.
As a teacher, I love that you said, Travis, I'm assuming you're in school leadership. What is your job?
I am the superintendent.
Okay, so I'm on the phone with two superintendents and the commissioner. Oh my goodness. Well, I'm a teacher, and I'm not going to say just a teacher because I think that's a pretty important job. But I love that you said that even though you don't have the best scores in all of Kentucky, that you really take the time to honor what your teachers have achieved, because I think as long as your staff and your teachers are growing and your students are doing better, you do have to celebrate that, because it's so easy to get defeated. I have an independent school in right there. We're a county school, and then we have the independent school right next to us, and they're almost always like #1 in the whole state or top 5 for sure. And their clientele is a lot different than us. In comparison is the thief of your joy, and don't ever forget to honor that, because it's really important as a first grade teacher here for you to take the time and celebrate those successes that they do have. So I wrote that as a note, and I love that the other superintendent said that she gave them proof back of, I heard you and here's the proof. So I got a lot from just listening to both of you. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. This is good. I think this is exciting work. Timely work.
Never say you're just a teacher.
Never. No.
You're the most important one on the call right now.
That's right.
Well, I appreciate that. I love that Dr. Glass introduces himself as chief learner.
We'll be sending out.
Goodbye.
Well, Ms. Walden, how are you?
I'm good. How are you all this afternoon?
I'm doing great. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Now, Miss Randolph is from Owensboro. I'm from Eastern Kentucky and Lawrence County, and you're from?
Christian County.
Christian County. Well, you guys are pretty close.
Close. Yeah, she's not too far away.
Not too far. Not too far. Matter of fact, one of my I actually hired a guy by the name of Frankie Smith a few years ago to coach basketball, and he wound up going to Christian County. He was Christian County's coach a couple years ago.
Okay.
Ladies, who wants to be the interviewer and the interviewee?
Who has access to the questions? Are they in the chat?
I have access to them.
Yeah, I can pull them up.
Okay, well, since you have access, I can answer them.
Well, I am recording. I'm one of the ones that are, and I can't pull my screen back up now that oh, yes, I can. Okay, I got it. I wouldn't minimize that one, but I've got him over here, so I can. All right, so would you like me to ask you one of the questions?
Yes.
Okay. All right, tell me about the last time you wanted to do something different than what was officially required by your school or district.
Well, I guess the last time that I wanted to do something different was last year. And I wanted to have the district to have a diversity director, because at the current time,
at that time, we did not in either of our school districts have a director of diversity. And the demographics of our city and county has changed quite a bit in recent years. And there was a little apprehension about the role the person would play.
So did they end up hiring one, or was it just something that did not happen?
Yes, I ended up submitting a proposal to each district outlining the needs and why a diversity director would be important, and the role that they would serve, and the things that they would do. And the city school system, they hired a director of diversity, and soon after, maybe about 6 months after that, the county, they hired one.
So then over the course of that year, you were able to help them make that change and have those diversity directors in place?
Yes, yes.
Have you seen that have an impact on your school system?
Yes, we've seen a great impact especially with the city schools, because they hired theirs first and they've had a little more time to work with. They hired an outside firm to do an equity audit for the district to see exactly the areas of need, the concentrated areas of need, so that the district will be better able to address the challenges concerning different population groups within the district. So it's helped by, educating the community and also the school district.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you for sharing your story.
You're welcome.
That's something that we have started a racial equity committee in Christian County, and it's during this past year, and they've done some really good work so far. I'm really excited about the direction that is going.
Yes, and I think it's good for each school district overall, because sometimes you have issues that are hard to address, that are, stemming from a lack of diversity or understanding of different cultures or whatever. And sometimes, when you are able to have different trainings or have small group discussions about specific issues, you can address those problems, or those questions or concerns in small group settings, and, come out with some viable solutions, to how to better address the needs of the kids and also the families, because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about.
Absolutely. We're right now, just this week, 100% of our employees are going through the implicit bias training, just to help get some understanding of self and how that affects your actions in the classroom and just interactions in as a whole. So it's really,
because we all carry in our own baggage,
Absolutely.
Everybody has a story, and we all come from somewhere. So, just being able to have a better understanding of, one another can make all the difference in the world. And then at the same time, you get a better understanding of yourself.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. I don't know if we went a little long, I'm not sure, but that was really good. I like this process.
Yes, I do too.
I like that it's like you said, a fireside chat. It's just that conversation and just sitting down with people and listening to, like you said, we all have our stories. So.
Yeah. What do you think, Mr. Fletcher?
I think that anytime when you genuinely listen to someone and just let them tell their story, it can only be a positive thing. So when you give this opportunity for people to tell a story or something that could bring about improvement, or just something to connect, it has to be a positive thing.
I think connection is the key, and focusing in on the things that we have in common, when it comes to things like diversity.
I think everything, from my perspective, I think everything should be built on relationships. If you we talked about faith earlier, my faith is built on a relationship with God through Jesus Christ. So when you look at, if that's what your faith is built on, then everything you do each day should be built on a relationship. And if you take faith out, still yet, we're relational beings. If we can build relationships with each other, we can kind of understand where each person's coming from and really genuinely cause change.
I think about just interactions with parents. Sometimes we can't fix everything for that parent, but just listening. I know I would have people come in really upset, and by the time we had the conversation, and there was a new outlook, and it wasn't that I had fixed it, but I had just listened and seen things from their perspective.
Well, I'll be happy to be interviewed next, or to interview someone. If anybody, Ms. Randolph, can you see the questions?
I'm using this on my cell phone.
Okay.
And I downloaded the doc. So if I switch over to the doc, I won't be able to see you. If, that's okay.
I could choose a question if you want me to, Ms. Randolph. I could choose a question for you if you want to interview Mr. Fletcher. I don't mind to do that, or we could.
Okay.
We want to do that. Let me see. Let me pull up the questions here.
Okay.
I'll just choose
one. And then you can do follow-up.
Okay.
Okay. Together. Choose a different one here. Can you tell me about the last time that you gave feedback to your school or district and something got better?
The last time I gave feedback and something got better, it's a tough question because I'm a superintendent. But so when you look at and giving feedback, I'll take this from a perspective of a principal. We were talking, he had called and asked input about his schedule for next year. That happened today, as a matter of fact, and we were discussing, he had some great ideas, and he was a little afraid to kind of step out and do something a little different. And it was about how to start next year and be able to provide remediation and enrichment at the same time. And so I was able to basically be, somebody that could question and ask him different questions and lead it, and not really lead him, but say, okay, what do you think about this? How do you go that way? And so I think that just by the end of the day, he had come closer to having a schedule together just from that question and answer session. And honestly, I'm not so sure I would have agreed with the schedule he came up with, but he had a lot of great thoughts behind it. He believes in it, so I'm going to support him in it. So again, that's something that happened today. So I think I've helped him make an improvement in his school.
So do you think that the question that you asked him steered him in a direction where he was able to find the solution on his own?
I had a lot of open questions that could have went in different ways, as opposed to trying to steer him down a path. It was more along the lines of, have you thought about this? And then what do you think about that? So I tried to ask open questions to give him just different thoughts and different perspectives on what he went through. So I don't think I directed him down a certain path as much as I tried to pull from him what he thought was best for his kids.
Do you think that helps in fostering relationships when it comes to like problem solving when you're working with different people? Not so much as, telling them where to go, but providing an opportunity for them to take ownership in the solutions to the problems that they have?
I think it shows my my principles. I believe in them. I think that it gives them that opportunity to know that I will ask tough questions, but it's one of those things that they know at the end of the day I'll support them when they can provide proof that they feel like something's going to work. So as a lot of times when they call me, it's about bouncing ideas off of me, and so we have a relationship of a, you know, this is somebody I can sit down and bounce ideas off of and still at the end of the day feel good and feel good about what I'm doing. So again, I try not to lead them down a certain path as much as I try to allow them, just challenge them to think bigger and think about ways to help all students. And then at the end of the day, a lot of times we come up together, and it's a collaborative effort. So at the end of the day, it feels like a collaborative effort.
Do you think that helps them build necessary tools to take on when they don't have you available, when maybe they're faced with issues within the school on their own, like with teachers or other staff that they're, you know, assigned over? Do you think that those tools that they take from what they learn from you can be transferable?
I do. I think that, you know, unless it's a legal issue, a lot of times, you know, legal is sometimes black and white. So those are things that we answer those type of questions. But two, it's about trying to promote problem solving, and how do you come up with that answer? And you know, my answer may not be the best for your building. Your answer may be best for your building, but still, yet hopefully together we'll come up with a very good answer. But I think that once we're done, that those conversations will kind of echo later on when other things come forward for them. So as a superintendent, sometimes I may not have to answer the same question twice, but still, yeah, I'm happy to, if it means that we can kind of grow together.
Are there any other questions on there that I could kind of follow up on?
Yeah,
you pushed me to think. Yeah, Ms. Randolph, you really pushed me to think. So I'm feeling pretty good right now. I was like, I've been interviewing for superintendent right here. It was great.
So, yeah, no, I thought you did a really good job, and I like how you brought it back to the relationships with your principals, and you know, I think that ties back to what we were talking about earlier, just with those relationships with people. And I appreciate that you don't just give them the answer, but it's the problem solving, and you're helping them think through and asking those questions that they might not have thought of. I think that helps build capacity in your administrators as they're thinking through whatever next challenge is coming their way.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And we
yeah,
really,
because they can take, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, please.
I was going to say, because they can take those same tools that they learned by, you know, working with you and use it with their teachers, and then thereby the teachers can have that same openness when they're working with the students and with parents. You know, it's like fostering an atmosphere of open conversation, and just making it part of their normal everyday routine.
Well, a lot of times when you give the answer off the bat, you just shut everything down. There's no room for growth when if you're asked a question and your first thing is just to give the answer. And believe me, that was something that came with experience. It wasn't something I did early on. I promise you that, but to try to give everything as an opportunity for growth and for building a relationship.
Because I think that's what this is about a lot of times, is building relationships.
Ms. Walden, we have about 3 minutes. Would you like for me to interview you?
Sure.
Okay.
Want me to pick my question? You have the question.
I've got the questions here.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
Tell me about a time when your school or district learned something about you or your family that was helpful to you.
I think for me personally, my son, he is in 7th grade, and he was diagnosed with dyslexia in 2nd grade. And so having those conversations with his teachers and just with my staff members and just that experiences helped me to be able to share that experience with other parents and other teachers, and just help them see that from that perspective, having lived that as a parent.
So I think that my school's learning about that has helped me to be more responsive to parents, and then it's helped me to bring that up in other conversations. What are we doing for those students? And just putting some things in place that have helped some of those kids that are suffering with that dyslexia.
Can you give a time or a specific example without names that experience helped you with another person, with another parent?
I had a parent to come into my office and just was very upset about her student and was wanting to pursue some testing. And because of the experience that I had, I was able to direct her to a community agency that we have that was able to do the testing and then also provide tutoring and just helped her to know what that resource was that was available within our community.
Did that parent come back to you and talk to you about that experience?
We did, because we were actually in that experience together because my son was receiving tutoring at the same time as her child was. So that gave us that kind of joint experience, and we were able to talk about their progress and then seeing the progress in her student because her student started to improve.
Is there a different bond with that parent now?
There is. I don't see her now as much in my role because I've left that school, so I don't see her as much now, but it definitely opened those lines of communication when we needed those to just talk about the progress her student was making at school. And she could see that from the tutoring he was getting outside of school.
What would you do differently in that experience? If something like that happens again, what would you do differently?
Oh, that's a hard one. I don't know what I would do differently in that one because in that situation, it worked out really well. So I don't know as though I would do anything differently in that next time. But just maybe helping other parents maybe that hadn't come in, like we started doing at open house, a booth for the Dyslexia Association. They would come in and share their information just to help other parents because without that conversation, I wouldn't have known that about her child.
Good. Well, it looks like we got 9 seconds.
9 seconds.
Ladies, it was great to talk to you.
Nice to meet you as well.